Hello, my name is Jessica Davis. In this presentation, I'm going to walk through the Sony Pictures hack of 2014. We will go over what happened, how investigators figured it out, and why it is such a big deal for cybersecurity. We will also go over some of the tools they used and the lessons we can take away from them today. In November of 2014, Sony Pictures Entertainment was hit with a massive cybersecurity attack. A hacker group called the Guardians of Peace, or GOP, broke into Sony's internal network and stole over 100 terabytes of data. That included unreleased films, personal employee information, and tons of private company emails. But it didn't stop there. They also used a piece of destructive malware called Wiper to erase data from the Sony servers and disable thousands of workstations. Employees showed up to work one morning and were met with a message on their screen saying Sony had been hacked. The group later demanded Sony cancel the release of the interview, which was a comedy about a plot to assassinate North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un. This made it clear that the attack was politically motivated and ended up becoming one of the first cyber attacks to get public attribution from the United States government, who blamed North Korea. Overall, the breach was a wake-up call for companies about just how devastating a cyber attack could be. So the big question after the Sony hack was, why did it happen and who was behind it? At first, no one was totally sure. But once the hackers, calling themselves the Guardians of Peace, started demanding that Sony cancel the release of the interview, it became clear this was much more than just a data breach. The movie was a comedy about assassinating North Korea's leader, and it didn't sit well with them. The U.S. government eventually came out and officially said North Korea was behind the attack. They linked the malware used in the hack to tools used in other known North Korean cyber operations, like similar coding styles, IP addresses, and data wiping methods. That said, not everyone agreed. Some cybersecurity experts felt that evidence wasn't 100% conclusive and that attribution in cyber attacks is always tricky. But it was still a big moment because it showed that cyber attacks can be used as political weapons, and it pushed governments and companies to start taking nation state threats a lot more seriously. After the attack, Sony brought in cybersecurity expert along with the FBI to start digging into what happened. The investigation focused on collecting digital evidence, things like server logs, malware files, login records, and employee device images. Basically anything that could help piece together the timeline of the breach. To analyze all that, investigators used digital forensic tools. Two of the main ones were FTK, or Forensic Toolkit, and Volatility. FTK is great for going through hard drives and disk images. It helps investigators recover deleted files, track user activity, and build timelines of what happened on a machine. Volatility, on the other hand, is used for analyzing the computer's memory, or RAM. It's super helpful for spotting things like malware that was running in memory but didn't leave behind obvious files. In this case, Volatility helped identify memory resident malware that was actively wiping data and covering its tracks. FTK was used to pull together structured evidence from the damaged devices and email archives. Together, these tools help forensic teams understand not just what was stolen, but how the attackers moved through Sony's system and how long they were there. There were some major ethical issues that came up during and after the Sony breach. One big question was about privacy. A lot of personal employee information was leaked, including social security numbers, salaries, and even medical information. That led to multiple lawsuits against Sony, and it made people question whether the company had done enough to protect its employees' data in the first place. Another issue was how the media handled it. News outlets jumped on the leaked emails and started publishing them even though they were clearly stolen. That raised a lot of debate and questions, like, is it okay to use hacked materials if it's newsworthy? Or is that just going to encourage more cybersecurity attacks? And then there's attribution. When the U.S. government pointed its finger at North Korea, some experts worried it was more political than factual. In digital forensics, you're supposed to be unbiased as possible. But when governments get involved, it can get complicated. So overall, the Sony hack wasn't just a technical event, it forced people to think hard about the ethics of cybersecurity, journalism, and personal responsibility in the digital age. The fallout from the Sony Pictures hack was massive, way beyond just IT headaches. Financially, Sony took an immediate hit with around $15 million in damage. And that didn't even include the long term costs like reputation loss or legal fees. A big part of the damage was about 70% of their computers were completely wiped out by the malware. That meant employees couldn't work, production timelines were delayed, and it took a lot of time and money to get systems back online. Then there were all the lawsuits. Employees sued Sony over the leak of their personal information. They argued that Sony should have done more to protect their data, and it brought up real concerns about corporate responsibility and cybersecurity. On top of that, Sony's reputation took a hit, especially because the leaked emails revealed some embarrassing conversations and internal issues. It caused leadership shakeups, and it made other companies realize they may not be as prepared as they thought for a serious cybersecurity attack. So in the end, it wasn't just a technical breach, it was a business, legal, and PR nightmare too. If there's one thing the Sony breach taught everyone is that cybersecurity cannot be an afterthought. It's not just about having antivirus software, it's about building a full strategy that includes people, tools, and plans. First, companies need layered security. Things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and up to date antivirus tools all working together. No single defense is enough on its own. Second, and honestly just as important, is employee training. The attackers reportedly got in through phishing emails, which means even the best tools wouldn't have helped if people didn't know what to look out for. Data encryption is another big one. If sensitive files had been properly encrypted, it would have made the stolen data a lot less useful to the hackers. Running regular audits and penetration tests can help companies find weak spots before attackers do. And finally, every company needs a clear incident response plan. Sony didn't seem fully ready for something like this, and that made the situation worse. So the big takeaway here is that cybersecurity isn't just IT's job, it's company-wide priority. On this slide is a quick timeline of how things went down during the Sony Pictures attack. In September of 2014, the hackers had actually gotten into the Sony's network, but no one knew it at this time. For weeks, they moved around on the inside, stealing data and setting things up. Then, on November 24th, things really exploded. Employees turned on their computers and got hit with a message from the so-called hacker group Guardians of Peace, saying Sony had been hacked and threatening to release stolen data. Over the next few days, the leaks started. Emails, unreleased movies, and personal employee information hit the internet. Around early December, threats started coming in and Sony canceled the premiere of the interview, which had clearly been the target of the attack. By December 19th, the U.S. officially blamed North Korea, and in January, Sony and the FBI published more detailed reports on the attack. So in just a few weeks, this went from a quiet breach to a major international cybersecurity crisis. By reviewing this case study, the Sony Pictures hack wasn't just a tech story. It was a turning point for how companies and governments think about cybersecurity. It showed that a single attack can have huge consequences, financially, legally, and even politically. From a digital forensics angle, this case showed how important it is to have the right tools, like FTK and volatility, and a strong investigation process to trace what happened. But it also showed cybersecurity jobs is everyone's job, not just IT's. Training employees, planning ahead, and being ready to respond fast can make all the difference. At the end of the day, this breach forced a lot of businesses to take a hard look at their systems and realize they weren't as secure as they thought. And for us, whether we're going into a digital forensics, cybersecurity, or IT, it's a solid reminder that being proactive and ethical matters in everything that we do. I hope you enjoyed this look into the Sony picture cyber attack and the role of digital forensics.